What is the absolute worst game you ever played? Maybe you thought of a game that was disappointing, or maybe you thought of a game that is filled with bugs and glitches. Although a few games I personally don't really like came to mind, I decided to find the definitive answer. I found a list of the top 100 lowest rated games on Steam, and I'm gonna play them all to find out which game I personally think is the worst. Now, let's spin the wheel and get ready to go dumpster diving. Wow, Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 hyphen the original video game trademarked. Finally, the one I've been waiting for. Let's get right into it. It's not every day that we get to look at an in-game cinematic, so I'm gonna make the most of it. We start up with a close-up of a woman who looks like she's being forced to smile at gunpoint before a wave of confetti turns the athletes into cartoons. It's actually not that bad of a cutscene, using some clever transitions to show some sports being played around some buildings in Tokyo and some in the actual arenas. I'm hyped. Let's see what the game has to offer. I spent about 30 minutes customizing my character and playing a couple of games before realizing that the game forced me into a smaller resolution and screwed up my recording. Nothing much happened here. Just know that I made my character French in the tradition of dumpster diving games gaslighting me into playing as the country that won the world record for the largest ever spelling contest. The good news is that upon booting up the game again, it shows the last character you made and the last sport you played, which is actually a cool touch. Speaking of the characters, the customization here is actually insane. I've seen very little games with this much customization options. And sure, you might say something like, oh, what about Fallout 4? But let me ask you this, does Fallout 4 give you the option of wearing clown makeup? I don't think so. Anyway, time for the actual game itself. Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 hyphen the original video game trademarked is pretty much just a mini game collection with a variety of different sports that you can participate in. I decided to try and get the more boring games out of the way first, so I started with the long jump. You know how most games have helpful tips and tricks when you're loading in to try to help you progress? Well, if you want help in this game, you gotta earn it. Information doesn't come free in Tokyo. But who needs tips? Let's just get right into the game. Yep, I don't know what I expected. All you do is mash the A button to make your character run like an idiot, then you angle your jump to go as far as possible. You get 3 tries to go as far as you can, and on the 3rd jump my character tried hyping up the audience by getting them to clap. Theoretically this makes you run faster, but that doesn't really matter since I was late to jump and got disqualified. Still, that was enough for me to move on to the next qualifier and unlock a tip. Huh, it looks like if I hold X at the top of a jump, then I'll end up going further. That's not a tip, that's just an extra instruction that you never told me. I mean, I guess it's not that big of a deal, but it really irritates me that I have to play each sport a couple times before the game tells me all the controls so I can actually succeed. Whatever, long jump sucks. Let's go to something much more interesting, the 100-meter dash. Well, at least this loading screen has some interesting information about the Olympic Games. Unfortunately, it's just as boring as the previous game. You just mash the A button to build up speed, then press the direction and the A button to do an even faster dash. When you beat the first qualifier, you get to go into the second qualifier. Then if you beat the second qualifier, you get to go to the finals, and from there you can place for a medal. To be honest, it's kind of funny how the difficulty works here. The first time I ran, I rushed past everyone else, and in the championship race, I had the latest start. But hey, I still managed to beat the Olympic record. Take that, haters. Vive la France! Now it's time for my favorite sport ever, football. The controls here are pretty simple. You can pass, you can shoot, and your star player can do a special shot. That's it. Honestly, this game sucks too. Every time the AI got the ball on their side, they immediately just kicked it out of bounds and made my team throw it in. It felt more like my opponents were trying to play keep away than play the actual game. I ended up scoring 1 goal before the game went into extra time. The extra time lasted for 24 seconds and for some reason ended right before I was about to score my second goal. For reference, each half only lasted a minute and a half. Imagine watching a football match and seeing 12 extra minutes added in stoppage time. That's pretty ridiculous. The second half wasn't much better. The AI continued their obsession with trying to shoot the ball out of bounds, which led to them scoring on their own goal. I got the most useless free kick, and while trying to do a styling kick, I also got the most ridiculous offsides call ever. From what I remember about the extremely weird offsides rule, it's possible for a play to be offsides if the kicker is onside, but an offsides teammate impairs the ability of the goalie in some way. And in this screenshot, it's obvious that my teammate, who is currently lying on the ground, isn't in the way of the goalie at all. Whatever. I score another goal while the goalie just stands there and does nothing and the game's over. That was lame. Alright, let's try baseball. It's almost impossible to mess up baseball. Oh look, they found a way. Instead of controlling where to pitch and where to swing, you're locked into a grid-like system. And the game even shows you exactly where the other team is targeting, so it's pretty easy to guess where to swing and where to throw. As a pitcher, you can choose the different types of pitches so you can change where the ball goes afterwards, but that's pretty much it. You can't do anything to make the players run faster on the bases, you can't force them to run to another base during a play, nothing. You just swing at the ball and hope that you get a single. After the most boring 2 innings I've ever played, I remembered something. If the long jump game had hidden controls, I wonder what would happen if I press the same buttons here. Alright, looks like we have a bunting option. That's pretty useless. How about this button here? Oh. There's a button that lets you swing harder. Finally, I can actually hit the ball further than 5 feet, and look at that, a grand slam. I had a couple more home runs before I got bored and just sandbagged the game early. I would have had a lot more fun if the game bothered to mention all the controls up front, so I wasn't just doing the same thing for 10 minutes. I played a couple more games that each had their own issues. Tennis was terrible. You have to press the A button to swing and hold down the A button to charge your swing, except sometimes the game just swung your racket instead of charging a shot, so I almost missed the ball several times. The rock climbing game was confusing in the instructions, so I got absolutely destroyed by my opponent. The list goes on. I wanted to try out some of the more combat-heavy games, but first I decided that I needed a makeover. Since the game has such in-depth customization options and a built-in way to share avatars online, it would be a shame not to take advantage of that. I scoured the internet for Bluefire's favorite character, then opened up the avatar code section and, oh my god, what is this? Remember back on the NES when games didn't have save data, so they instead generated a password that you had to write down? Yeah, imagine that, but 10 times worse. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's nice that you can just type in a code to get the character you want, but why do you have to add in all these symbols that I have to type? Why not just use letters and numbers? Anyway, here she is, Bluefire's favorite character. Beautiful. I tried out boxing, and it's honestly rather boring. You think that a boxing match against a huge buff guy would be one-sided?
And you're right.
Since you automatically block and pushing any direction punches, you can just keep attacking and destroy your opponent. In order to get a TKO, you have to knock down your opponent 3 times in a single round. Since each round is rather short and the timer keeps running when your opponent goes down, this is a lot harder than it sounded. Luckily, by channeling my inner 8-year-old, I was able to down my opponent with the power of button mashing. The final game I played was Judo, and for once the instructions were way too detailed. The gist is that you have to grapple your opponent, then move this bar to either their red area for an ippon or blue area for a wazari. Pushing the bar costs stamina, and performing an attack drains your opponent's stamina. If you perform an attack while your opponent has no stamina, you automatically achieve ippon, which means you just earn a point. At this point, I was super bored of all the button mashing minigames, and between this and the fact that the game put 2 Makotos on my team, I was kind of getting tired of how repetitive the game was. In the end, there's 2 main issues with the game. The first is that all the sports are so shallow that there's no real incentive for me to play this game over any similar ones. In fact, since the game was published by Sega, let's just compare it to other Nintendo games. Why would I play the baseball here with the stiff controls and lack of interactivity when I could just play a game like Super Mario Sluggers with the interactive maps, items, and overall just better gameplay? Why play the football here with the AI who refused to play the game when you could play a game like Mario Strikers? Hell, Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 hyphen, the official video game trademark, isn't even the best game made by Sega based on the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. And the game costs $40. Yeah, you heard me right. 40. That's the price of Wolfenstein Youngblood, Canyon Capers, Hunt Down the Freeman, and Sniper Art of Victory combined. And for what? A pretty decent character creation disguising itself as a minigame collection? And this is the officially endorsed game from the Olympics? Really? As much as the price annoys me, the gameplay itself isn't terrible. I didn't encounter any glitches as I played, and I could actually understand what I had to do at all times, which made it way better than most of the other games on this list. I also heard a couple people say that the multiplayer was glitchy, but since we aren't going to spend another $40 on a game we will likely only play for half an hour, I guess we'll never know. Overall, I don't know where exactly to place this game on the list. Personally, I think it's one of the better games I played quality-wise, but the price and overall repetitive nature of the game prevents it from topping the list. Anyway, I hope to see you all again next week. Peace out.